politics, and it's coming at a time when it's just 2 years after President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga had a handshake at the doorsteps of Harambee House, giving birth to the Building Bridges initiative, which once again has caused a lot of political division among different political leaders. Some saying it's meant to create some political seats for specific people, some calling it a document of the dynasties. Is this the situation? We are going to have, a discussion about the Building Bridges initiative in terms of the handshake 2 years after the two leaders had their handshake at the doorsteps of Harambee House. And this morning, on a Twitter poll question, you're also asking you, what is your view about the handshake that is now 2 years old? What is your view about the handshake that is now 2 years old? This handshake was between the two leaders, ODM leader Raila Odinga, President Uhuru Kenyatta, who's also the Jubilee Party leaders. Yet we see in his own party, that is Jubilee Party, things are not going well because of the Building Bridges initiative campaign rallies that are currently happening in the country, and one that we expect to happen on a Saturday in Nakuru County, which has also had a lot of political divisions with, lots of questions being asked on what needs to be done on Saturday and what not needs to be done. And to have this discussion with me in our studio, I have two brilliant minds here, two gentlemen in our studio, and seated on my immediate actually extreme left, let me start with you, is Isaac Wabuge, who's the governance and political consultant. Thank you so much for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hoping that you began your week very well.
Yes.
And seated next to Mr. Wabuge is Daniel Juma, Executive Director at the Global Peace Foundation. Gentlemen, once again, welcome. Good morning, Mr. Juma.
Good morning.
Now, we're talking about 2 years after the handshake. What can you say about that?
Thank you, Brenda, and let me begin by wishing you and all women a happy International Women's Day.
Thank you.
And also sending my condolences to the people of Sambweni for the loss of Honorable Suleiman Dori this morning. It is exactly 2 years since President Kenyatta and His Excellency the Prime Minister Raila Odinga signed the handshake at Harambee House. As you know, that was something that was unexpected. Out of the blues, they came, and after we saw a lot of political tension, they finally sat down and agreed to work on what they called the 9 points agenda. What this was able to do was to tone down the political climate. As you know, previously, before that, there's a lot of contestations emerging from the just concluded elections. But after the handshake, people, went back to business. We saw business, opening up. Investors that were afraid to do business were finally able to go into the whole country. Especially, Brenda, as you know, the opposition stronghold, especially in Nyanza, those areas, as a result of the contested election, were very hostile to the government. And after the handshake, you could see government officials were able to go down into all parts of the country to deliver the services, the much-needed services, so that the country would be seen as one unified country. I have always said that elections is not a reason to make the country ungovernable. Is not a reason to divide the country. And the very fact that Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta were able to sit down and agree on how to drive the nation forward, I think that was a very, very good step. But of course, the handshake, as expected, has brought with it several casualties.
Right.
We have people who thought that it would be business as usual. Especially people who thought that politics is just about parties. But I've always said that President Uhuru Kenyatta, after being sworn in, he stops being the head of the Jubilee Party, but becomes the head of the nation, the father of the nation. And he has a responsibility to ensure that he unifies the country, to ensure that he serves the nation without fear or favor.
But talking about unifying the country, Mr. Wabuge, that is not what we are seeing with this BBI.
Yeah, basically, I think I can say the word disruption has more of a business connotation in most cases, but nothing defines BBI more than that word disruption. The handshake totally disrupted the Kenyan political landscape. And as we are saying, is that it had its own issues that will come up. You have mentioned the aspect of unity as a country. You know, unity is a bit relative when we are trying to define what is unity when we are talking about. The fact that we might dissent on a few issues against each other does not reflect a disunited country. It just speaks about a country whose the democratic space is wide. A country whereby right now, as we have rightly put it over and over, that we have one of the most progressive constitutions, not in Africa, but globally. So when we are able to see people coming out and expressing dissent openly, it speaks about the democratic space that has come in the country. And when we talk about now the aspect of the handshake, you realize that prior to that, the both antagonists had really indoctrinated their support base to an extent that the country was on the verge. The people on the NASA side believed they have been defranchised for the long time, and they actually believed the idea of secession was ripe. And you see, to Uhuru Kenyatta, who had been announced as the winner, he had to come back to the drawing board and ask himself key question: am I going to rule half a country? Him as a head of state, as my colleague has rightly put it, he has a constitutional mandate to lead an entire country. But here he was in a situation whereby almost half of the country was hostile to him and his administration. So it called for somebody with some element of political alchemy, I can say that, for him to come back to the drawing board and realize that, you know what, I need to calm down, engage the other side, so that we can have a truce. And this truce has had a lot of benefits. We might have our own issues internally in the country, but one fact is that when you look at the economic index of the country, post the handshake, you realize that there has been growth. When you look at the direct foreign investment in the country, post the handshake, you realize that it has gone up. And right now, Kenya's geopolitical profile has gone up to a moment that you cannot really define us. A few years back, who knew that after the failed bid of Amina Mohamed to chair AU, after his failed bid, who knew that Kenya will now go for even a bigger post, like the seat on the UN Security Council? So this one can only happen when a country's leadership is united. And this one can come up only when a country's political leadership can speak with one voice.
Right.
So the fact that the ODM leader and the president are speaking of one voice, it has enhanced Kenya's position. And that's why when you look at the recent crisis in DRC Congo, Kenya played a key role. Actually, President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga were the key negotiator of the peace deal in DRC. The same as the deteriorating diplomatic issues between Kenya and Tanzania. Right now, you are able to see Kenya and Tanzania are able now to engage as two states in East Africa.
Right.
So there's much about it, as much as there's a negative side of it, which we cannot run away.
All right, and you know, from your statement, I'm only hearing President Uhuru Kenyatta, ODM leader Raila Odinga. So where does it leave Deputy President William Ruto, who's also caused, you know, a lot of questions. It's caused a lot of questions with people feeling like the Deputy President has been isolated in all this Building Bridges initiative, you know, agenda. But allow me to take a short break, gentlemen. We shall be right back with more discussion about the 2 years, you know, handshake between the two top political leaders in this country.